Right. It looks like it's 7:01 on my clock. So I want to welcome everyone to our event this evening. We're so happy to see you, and we're thrilled to be offering this special session, Planning for a Career, Not Just a Job. And we're going to talk with you tonight about a few things. I want to go ahead and move to our first agenda items. We want to make sure that we share introductions and let you know who we are. We want to discuss what is a career and what we want to talk about career opportunities and pathways that exist through higher education, the human resources and organizational development area, and K through 12 teaching. We also want to share with you graduate assistantship opportunities, our graduate programs, and we want to make sure to offer you time to certainly ask as many questions as you like. Tonight, I'd like to go ahead and introduce some very, very special guests. With us tonight is Dr. Jake Gross. He is our program director for the Master of Art in Higher Education Administration, top 10 program in the country. We're very proud of that. We also have Brandon Gossett, our future PhD. He is in a PhD program right now at the University of Louisville, and he assists with Dr. Stephanie Wooten, working for the Master of Art Teaching program. And we also want to welcome Dr. Brad Shuck. Dr. Brad Shuck is well known at the University of Louisville and in our program. He is a top 2 researcher at the University of Louisville, and just an absolute asset to our college and to our department, as is all these folks. And right now, what we'd like to do is I'd like to quickly just ask you, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear career? And if you'd like, you can take your mic off, or you can actually put just the first word into the chat. The first word that comes to mind when you hear career. Brandon, confusion. Our chat is at the top left if you're not familiar with Teams. Longevity, wonderful. Any other words that come to mind? Hybrid, awesome. And then our next, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear job? Pain. Thank you, Dr. Sheffield. Work. Excellent. Thanks, Bridget. Short term. Love it. Teamwork. Awesome. Wonderful. What we're going to do next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between careers and jobs, right? Probably the most important thing that we can discuss today is the definitions, to make sure that you have a valid definition in mind for the difference between these two. The career is a long-term professional journey you determine based on your passions. A job is normally what we perform to earn money to support our basic needs. That's really the difference between these two. And when we talk about career paths, we want to make sure that we understand that definition, which is a career path is a specific set of jobs that prepares you for upward growth in your industry. So we want to first make sure you've got some ideas of what the difference is between career and jobs. And then obviously, we want to talk about career pathways. Right now, I want to talk to you just briefly about timelines. A lot of students that I work with aren't thinking about maybe a 3-year or 5-year timeline after they graduate. If you're a recent graduate, for instance, you will notice in 2023, I've got bachelor degree, and discovery phase. And I have a thumbs up, thumbs down. Basically, during that first year after you graduate, you are discovering very quickly what you love and what you don't love. During that second year, you're going into 2024, you've got a year under your belt. You're thinking about all the experiences you've had in the 1 year. You might be thinking about a mentor. Do I need a mentor at this point in time to help me along my career? As you get more experience under your belt, you're looking toward 2025, for example, and you might be thinking about, am I building that network? Do I have that circle of five, that professional circle of five that I can depend upon, who's going to be honest, truthful with me, and give me solid advice? And am I still gaining experience in the field that I'm passionate about? By 2026, you've got 3 years of work under your belt, a job, maybe two jobs. You're getting a really good feel for what you love and what you don't. This is a big part of your career timeline. It is exactly what you do in your 20s, potentially in your 30s. For some of us, it's our 40s, and we continue. So it's a decade of learning, and it's a wonderful decade of discovery for you. Tonight, we want to make sure that you have three industries in mind and that you understand how we can help should the time come. For instance, during 2026, when you've got about 2.5 years, 3 years under your belt, you have a good feel for what direction you're headed. What path, what route, what interstate are you going to be on? We want to make sure that you understand what your educational options are and or credentials through the University of Louisville. Right now, I want to introduce Dr. Jake Gross. He is our expert in higher education, and he's going to work with you and describe to you some of the career opportunities in the field.
Welcome, everyone. Excited to be here and chat with you a little bit about higher ed careers. My guess is that no one, if you're thinking about a career in higher ed here, my guess would be that you did not start thinking about that when you were like 5 and 6 and people started asking you what you wanted to do when you grow up. I have yet to meet someone who, when they were, who has told me that when they were young, they said they wanted to be in higher ed. Often you will find that people have a passion for education. They may have family members that are educators. And also, I think there's a group of people that just really likes the feel of being at a college campus or university, the intellectual vibrancy, the curiosity. There's always something going on. So as people find their way into higher education, it can often be through experiences with a good faculty member or just family member that is prompted them to go into education. And it is often about passion, but as you can see here, you can actually make a decent living doing it too. And if you think about colleges and universities as big organizations or as complicated organizations, think about all the business functions, think about the supports that are provided for students. You can see there are a lot of different career paths within higher education. There are traditional kind of business career paths. There are kind of counseling type career paths. And then there are career paths that are related to maybe more the education side, the direct kind of frontline face-to-face education. So here you see a variety of specific careers in the field. There are over 740 different roles in higher education. If you're thinking about a career in higher ed, higheredjobs.com is a fantastic resource to give you a sense of the different types of jobs, but also will be a good place to go and look for specific job postings. And so again, just to sort of give you a sense here of the functional areas of a college or university, you've got student affairs, you've got your business operations side, you've got a whole, generally a large financial aid function. They're the folks that work with alumni relations. They're the folks that do institutional research, or what in sort of private industry is thought of as operations research. Of course, there's housing, there's enrollment management, which would include admissions often, and often that encompasses financial aid as well. So again, there are a lot of diverse diverse things you can do in higher education.
Dr. Gross, can you elaborate a little bit on your journey into higher ed and maybe your research area?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So no, I did not think I was going to go. Thought I was going to be many things, but I did not think I was going to be a professor. I Before I became a professor, I worked in university administration for a while in multicultural affairs and academic advising, and I got involved with that in part because of my experiences as an undergraduate student, and specifically my interactions with the financial aid office. I was a Pell Grant recipient, which if you know what that means, it means you come from a lower income background. My family didn't have a lot of money. I was trying to figure out how financial aid worked and really connected with some financial aid counselors who helped me figure some of that out. And that got me interested in sort of the student affairs, academic support side of the institution. And my research to this day still relates to financial aid. But as I got in further into graduate school, I realized that I really, really liked being in a classroom and working with students. So that's where I decided to become a faculty member. But I feel like it's the best of both worlds. I can still do that work with the administrative side of the university. And I will note there are lots of ways to do that. You can work in financial aid at a college or university, and you can advise a student group, right? So that's, I think, one of the exciting things about working at a college or university is there's just all sorts of ways to meet your passions beyond, just making a decent living, which is important and what you can do in the field.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gross. Dr. Brad Shuck, we'd love to have you
Yeah.
talk about human resources.
Yeah, of course. But my career started in higher education. So I worked in student affairs for 10 years prior to coming to the university. And I tried my hand in private practice. I worked for a small company in Miami, Florida called Norwegian Cruise Line, and I worked in corporate HR after working in higher ed for almost 10 years while going to school, and then transitioned over to the University of Louisville. And it has been absolutely amazing. And here's what I'll tell you. I think higher ed and the human resource field it's about people. It's about loving on folks. It's about meeting people where they are and finding an area where you can really pour into other people in a way that elevates their life and their trajectory, but also fulfills a real passion for what you have going on. There are so many pathways. So I started in higher ed and started it in student affairs and then transitioned those skills over into the HROD area. And there are so many opportunities in HR and organization development that are available for you. We've got those here on the screen. I will say that if you become a chief OD officer and you're making $204,000 a year, I'm gonna expect like a lunch every couple of weeks or maybe months, something like that. The ability to impact practice is incredible here. So look at stuff like this. We think about generalists, we think about specialists, but we move over into the consultant piece of that. And you can be a consultant in an organization, which is what I did when I was at Norwegian, or you can be a consultant as an outsider going into companies and working with them directly. Let's hit that next slide real quick. So there are training specialists, there are consultants, there are VPs of learning and development. So here's I think the distinction that I would make. When we think about HR, we might think about the management function and then the people function of that. Some of us are comfortable in both areas. Some of us are comfortable in only one of those areas. When we think about like things like compensation, benefits, employee relations, you may have a real skill set and strength in those areas. Or you may also lean toward training and development, OD, IO psychology. All of these career paths with the skills that you already have would connect directly over into the field of HROD. And then the next slide talks a little bit about the variety of areas within HR right now. So think about performance management, organizational structure, employee benefits, training and development, data and data analytics, which is becoming a vastly and hugely growing field right now. People need data. I mean, who doesn't wear something like this, which is a watch, or have a phone? My phone is actually plugged in right now. Here's a phone, right, which tracks everything that I've got going on all day. It tells me when I need to breathe, when I need to go work out. It it tells me like, all right, well, you're not moving enough. The analytics around HR right now, we are just beginning to understand what's going on in those areas. It's absolutely incredible and blowing, just absolutely exploding. And then things like information systems and then employee compensations are continuing to be really, really important areas, particularly as we transition back from like a remote work environment to more of a hybrid environment. So the field right now is kind of your oyster, and getting specific training in those areas, which our degree here at the university offers, would provide you the opportunity to apply and work in any of these specific fields.
Thank you, Dr. Shuck. Brandon Gossett, you are up, sir. I have lost Brandon. Brandon, are you there? Folks, if Brandon can't jump on right now, we're going to go ahead and skip a couple slides. We'll come back and we'll go ahead and move and talk about graduate assistantships. There's a few of you on the phone, on the call today, that if you're not aware, graduate assistantships are a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to work at the university or for your university for a set number of hours. You are given your tuition is, taken care of. You're provided your health care benefits, and you're, obviously given a monthly living stipend. So as a graduate assistantship, it's a great opportunity, for you to pursue a graduate degree at very, very minimal cost, literally for free. At the University of Louisville, we do offer 3 types of graduate assistantships. You may or may not be familiar with them. One is graduate teaching assistant, that's a GTA. One is graduate research assistant, GRA, and then a graduate assistant. That is generally a student who's going to provide administrative support for the department, and particularly work with probably a program director, such as Dr. Gross, and Dr. Sheffield's on the call today. Graduate assistantships at the University of Louisville can literally be found across the university and across every university, whether you attend UofL or not. For instance, at the University of Louisville, there are GAs available in the Disability Resource Center, financial aid, through our peer tutoring center called REACH, through student affairs, through our own college, the College of Education and Human Development, and there are GA positions available at Speed School. And not sure if Brandon's on the call, but what we can do is go ahead and have Dr. Gross speak to.
He's back.
Oh, is he? Okay, wonderful.
I believe so.
Can you hear me, Susan? Sorry about that.
I can. Yeah, Brandon, I can.
Okay, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there, but just wanted to thank everybody for y'all's time tonight and for tuning into this, and appreciate Susan for organizing this. I just wanted to say first off that one of the reasons I think careers can be confusing is because there are so many different ways that you can sort of maybe multiple on and off ramps is probably the best way to. And education is certainly an example of that. It's no coincidence that all the programs that we're highlighting here tonight in this call are all under the larger heading of the College of Education and Human Development. There's a lot of overlap, in other words, between some of these career fields. So of course, what I'm representing and what I'm talking about tonight is the K-12 teaching opportunities. And of course, you can see the roadmap here that Susan's provided on the slide. Whether it's a school counselor or teacher or librarian, whether it's assistant principal or superintendent, the field of K-12 education is pretty broad. There's a lot of ways you could tap into that. And again, a lot of on and off ramps in the K-12 area. So one thing that I will point out that makes the K-12 teaching field, that career field, a little bit different than, for example, the higher education or post-secondary field. One of the things that makes it unique is that oftentimes in K-12, there's some type of certification that's attached to the position that you're wanting to pursue. So really everything you're looking at on this slide, and it can vary from state to state, but pretty much everything you're looking at is in Kentucky is going to be attached to some type of state certification. In Kentucky, you know, and we've got some figures here, I think, that are pretty helpful. They give you an idea of salary range, but a lot of different ways you could go about it. You could start your career as a teacher, as an elementary teacher in elementary school. You could start off in high school. You could start off as a special education teacher, but in whatever type of classroom or certification you pursue, again, it's going to be a unique certification that's attached to it. And of course, that's where our program options come in that we'll talk about in a little bit. But something else I'll point out, you're looking at the different career options here. There is no real logical progression for some of these. You could start off as an early childhood teacher and decide, you know what, I want to move up into the elementary school areas, or maybe I want to become a high school teacher, or vice versa. Maybe you start off in high school and decide, you know what, I think I'd like to teach special education and get certified there. So you'll see teachers sort of back and forth depending on what your interests are and what your career interest and your you know, where I call teaching a calling. So I think whatever your calling is, that might unfold over time where you'll end up in a position down the road where maybe you never planned for that up front. And then also administration. There's lots of, you could start off as a teacher and decide you want to become an administrator, a school principal, or maybe even superintendent. So there's lots of different ways. The teaching profession can look a lot different for you, and yet you're still under that larger teaching umbrella. But I think that's a good thing ultimately, as you've got a lot of room to grow in the K-12 area. So I would stress that whatever that career might look like for you in education, there's lots of different paths you could take, and you've definitely got room to grow in a career there.
Thank you, Brandon. We talked briefly just about graduate assistantships, and if there's anyone here tonight that has any questions, just let us know. We'll have that Q&A session here in just a few minutes. We talked about where they are across the University of Louisville. And I think now I'll go ahead and turn the slide back over to Dr. Jake Gross to talk about the MA in Higher Education Administration.
Yeah, and I think I often say to prospective students that my job isn't to sell you on our particular program, but to tell you that we have a program that is really top-notch, reasonably priced, and we think it's a good fit for a lot of folks. And I always welcome people to have follow-up individual one-on-one conversations with me as the program director so we can figure out if this is a good fit for you. We are a highly ranked program. The faculty, and I mean this genuinely, this isn't true in all programs across the university, but they're good people, they're flexible people, and they're very well respected in their fields. And why that matters to you is because, of course, we bring the work we do nationally and in our research into the classroom. And the piece about being good, flexible people is that most of our students are working full time. And we kind of have two buckets of students in our program. We've got students who are working full time in higher education administration. and they've got busy lives, and we know that. And we've got a large group of students who are active military, who are teaching in our OTC programs across the country. And we're very adept at working with students in whatever kind of space they're in, personally and professionally. And part of that flexibility is recognizing that, look, people have a lot of life experiences. The GREs aren't the best predictor of your success in any graduate program beyond your first semester, and they're not going to be that predictive of your success in our program. We evaluate you holistically in the program, and we want to remove a barrier to applying. So there's no GRE. We're 10 credit hours, which is we think about as short as you can make a program, which we know is important for students, but still get that important content knowledge to advance your career. And we have really evolved and actually led across the university, been leaders in thinking and reimagining how we offer our classes. We do entirely online courses, so you could never step foot on the campus at the University of Louisville, although you're always welcome. And we do have a face-to-face option. Online is completely asynchronous, which means you don't have to meet at a specific time. And we offer courses in 3-week formats, 5-week formats, 8-week formats, 10 weeks, and 16 weeks. So it's a nice way to try and fit the different courses into whatever else you've got going on in your lives. And then the last thing I'll say about our program is that we do take a high touch approach to our advising, which means we're going to want to chat with you. We're going to want to check in. And then importantly, as you move through and relative to this conversation, we want to make sure you're on a good trajectory for furthering your career. And that can be, I've had someone who's in my classes who's already dean of students, and she wants to be the VP of student affairs. Our job is to help her get the experiences, get the background knowledge to get there. An important part of that is our advising.
Thank you, Dr. Gross. We appreciate that. Next up, we have got the Master of Science in HR and OD. And I'd love for, we're spotlighting Dr. Ron Sheffield right now. He's actually on the call. He's our program director. He is our executive in residence. And Brad, I think between the two of you all, we could duo this one. Dr. Sheffield, would you like to greet the students tonight?
I was trying to ignore Dr. Shuck, but he put me on the spot, so I'm happy to.
I know you were.
I'm happy to run my mouth a little bit. Thank you. We tag team a whole lot. Thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. So that's my mug on the picture there. We'll start there. First of all, we're SHRM aligned. This is a big deal. So the Society of Human Resource Management, our classes are aligned with the governing body and the governance that SHRM operates on. So what that means about the program is that what you learn, you can apply. This is very, very, very important to us. I also wanted to kind of skip over that second one there. We'll talk about that in a second. When the third bullet is real important. Dr. Gross really honed in on this. The GRE or any other standardized test has no significant implication to you finishing higher education, none whatsoever. And so we as a faculty body, we agree completely. There's no GRE required for our program. Same thing here, 30 credit hours, 10 classes. Our courses are 8 weeks long, and they go by in the blink of an eye. You'll do a tremendous amount of work in 8 weeks. Make no mistake, it's a lot of work, but you will enjoy it as you go through it. I'll go back to bullet number 2, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Shuck to wrap us up, if you don't mind, Brad. Our faculty, we do what we talk about. That's one of the things that we really do appreciate about our team. And I'll also kind of copy Dr. Gross's words here too. We do truly care about what we're doing. We really, really do. And I literally was writing a note here a minute ago. We are a team of, we try really hard to be really good human beings. And our team, we really do care about one another. We don't always agree, by the way, because that's the boring. Everybody can't agree. But we do get along, and we want to learn from one another, which is very cool. So we come from a varied background, many backgrounds to get where we are. I was in corporate America the bulk of my life, and I've been a corporate consultant for a very long time. So I love that space. I really do appreciate it because it's constant change. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Shuck, if you don't mind, Brad.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what Dr. Sheffield talked about. We are a practice-focused degree, very much like higher ed and the MAT. And I think you're seeing this theme here, where what you're going to learn in the classroom, you're going to be able to apply the very next day. It really is about finding where are your areas of passion. What do you want to really kind of lean into? These degrees here are about you. And we develop our programs and our courses and the evidence practice that we teach in our classrooms to be focused specifically on helping you reach the next milestone. Yeah, I'm excited about the HROD program. I'm excited about the higher ed program and the MAT program, and just helping everyone here on this call like find that fit for you and taking the next step.
Thank you, Dr. Shuck, and gosh, Dr. Sheffield, we got a dual team going tonight. Brandon, you're back up, sir, to talk about the Master of Art in Teaching.
Okay, so you guys are seeing a picture of our program director. Her name is Dr. Stephanie Wooten-Burnett. She is all over the place in our college. She's not only program director, but she's also the main advisor. She's sort of primary advisor for a lot of our MAT students. So one thing I'll say about the Master of Arts in Teaching is the good news is if you went down this road, you've got a lot of options. The bad news is you've got a lot of options. So it can be overwhelming, but that's why I'm here. And that's why Dr. Wooten-Burnett is here, is to help folks sort of navigate how to become a teacher and what that might look like for you and your particular plans and what you want to do. So the two programs that we're highlighting here, these are both MAT programs. So these are both Master of Arts in Teaching degrees. They're just two different versions. It's two different ways you can go about it. The first one is our Louisville Teacher Residency Program. This is a partnership with JCPS. And if you're not from around these parts, JCPS is the school district here in the Louisville area. So, and they're a big partner with us here at UofL. So this residency program, it is a residency program, I should say. I call it a teacher in training program. So in this scenario, it's a one-year program. You're a full-time grad student. You're employed with JCPS, but you're employed as a resident, like a teacher in training throughout that year. Throughout that time, you're basically shadowing a mentor teacher in a JCPS school. Basically, you're learning the ropes, and you're learning it from a master teacher, and you're in the mix. You're in a classroom for that year. And then, of course, at the end, you graduate, and JCPS gives you priority placement to be a teacher in a JCPS classroom in an accelerated improvement school in JCPS. This is our third year running. We're in the middle of bringing in our third cohort as I speak. So it's relatively new, but we're rocking and rolling. The other option is, again, another MAT program. This one's called the Alternative Certification. You might sometimes hear it called an Option 6 program, Alt Cert. It's all the same thing. This is a 2-year MAT program. And the main difference is in this scenario, you actually start your teaching career. You actually go out, you find a teaching job, and you're getting paid. You're onboarded, you're getting benefits and everything else with the school district, and you start your teaching career, and you do all that while you complete this alternative certification. We have a couple different a couple different admission cycles. We're trying to beef that up and make the program more accessible. So we admit a couple times a year now, but the next admission will be spring of 2024. So I'll point out in both of these programs, though, our college is offering, we're able to offer a 25% reduced tuition for the MAT program. So I want to make sure I plug that too, for sure. So lots of different ways you could do the MAT. I don't think it's on this. I'm not sure if we have a slide for this or not, Susan, but I did want to echo what some of the other folks have already said about the GRE. One thing, and I'll close on this. one thing our program has to sort of be mindful of and navigate around are the state certification requirements. I mentioned before, all of those teaching positions in K-12, almost without exception, they're attached to some kind of state certification. So you have to get state certified, at least in public schools. So last year, I think it was, the state decided we were no longer required or mandated to have the praxis case exam. The praxis case exam was historically a barrier to admission for students. We at the time accepted the GRE as a substitute. So the reason this is relevant is they decided last year we don't have to do that anymore. So for the MAT, there is no praxis case or GRE requirement for the same reasons that our faculty have already said in this call. It was for the same reason. So I want to make sure I mention that too.
Thank you, Brandon. I know in the chat, Brandon, there was a question about, does this prepare you for college teaching? So I just responded that, MATs really prepare them for K through 12 teaching.
That's right.
But obviously, it's a stepping stone to help. And I think Dr. Gross responded in the chat as well. For anyone that would, be thinking about how do I become a college professor? That is about pursuing and completing a doctorate degree, a PhD, or an EDD, probably a PhD rather, in your area. And Dr. Gross, do you want to just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so generally speaking, and I should note that there are different types of faculty jobs, but generally speaking, to teach at the college level, you have to have a degree that is at least higher than the level at which you would be teaching. So conceivably, someone with a master's could teach undergraduates. But that said, generally a PhD is required to teach at the college level, or perhaps a terminal degree in that field. So some of our engineering colleagues may not have PhDs in engineering per se, but have a master's degree or a master's of business administration for the business school, or a Juris Doctorate, a JD, if you wanted to teach in the law school.
Perfect. Hopefully that helps answer some questions.
Susan,
And
if
we
I
do
could add to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that's an excellent question. I get that all the time. And the big difference is in K through 12, it's the state certification therein lies the rub, is probably the best way to put it. So in order to be certified teacher, you have to go through some program and training that's approved by the state, etc. So long story short, we've even had PhD candidates come through, or PhD folks come through our certification programs to get certified, because it's still that certification certification by the state that they're lacking. So that was a really good question.
We do want to stop, and we want to give you guys time to ask questions. We've got a lot of folks in the room today that are experts. So you have Brandon Gossett, who's been doing this for years. You have Dr. Jake Gross. You have Dr. Brad Shuck, Dr. Ron Sheffield. I know we also had Dr. Ann Hurd on the call. And Dr. Ann Hurd is a industrial, I want to say industrial organizational psych PhD. And I think we had a few psychology majors on our call today. I don't know, Dr. Ann, are you there?
I am, thanks.
Ann, with your background, do you want to elaborate a little bit about how you moved to into that org psych world and PhD there?
Yes, it's just, it really aligns with what Dr. Shuck said earlier, that industrial organizational psychology is the study of work behavior, people at work, and kind of a subset that's aligned with that field is the fields of human resource management, human resource development, and organization development. And I was very interested myself in psychology, and so went the IO psychology route. And again, similar to what everyone has said, have really loved teaching at the college level and practicing in organizations and helping employees and leaders develop.
Thank you, Anne. I went ahead and just stopped sharing the screen to allow anyone here to ask any questions you may have.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Rowan, and I was wondering, could you go over a little bit more about the HR side of things on that pathway again? My computer was acting up, so I didn't catch it all, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So there are a variety of different opportunities in the HR space. All of it revolves around people and how we take care of folks in workplace settings. And some of those revolve around compensation, benefits, employee relations. Some of those revolve around human resource information systems and data analytics. And others revolve around things like organization development, training and development, executive development, and then consultation, which can be inside an organization or outside of an organization. So you can own your own consultancy, work with companies, or you can be embedded inside an organization and you can do that same work inside for a specific company. But the pathways here are unbelievable, just really, really amazing. And HR is becoming a really interesting place to be right now in a post-COVID environment.
So Stephanie, I think too, just to add on to Dr. Shuck's comment, the pathways are just very diverse. And I think that's too where this is a wonderful opportunity for you to do this discovery phase and even contact Dr. Shuck, talk with him. He'll have a sidebar with you. But the field is diverse. We're talking about employee benefits and compensation, training. Maybe you're really an extrovert and you love to train. Maybe it's the training field that you should, think about and or pursue. There's analytics. We've got to think a student that was on the call that's, I think he's doing data analytics over in the business school. Everything you learn is just extraordinarily transferable across industries, actually. And tonight we're recording the session, so I'll be sending out the recording link to everyone tomorrow morning. So you'll have it within 24 hours.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Simon, do you have any questions for us tonight?
I'm good. I feel pretty good about everything that's been said today. So.
Well, I like that Louisville Cardinals shirt you've got on, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
What area did you graduate with? Your major?
I'm actually a current grad student in the sport administration department.
Fantastic.
I'm with
Okay,
College of Education. I'm in the College of Education, so.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to have you on. Hi, Bridget. Do you have any questions for us tonight?
Not really a question, but my dad actually sent me the email for this.
Your dad?
You know him?
I don't know if I know him or not.
His name is Justin Middlebrook.
Oh, yes. Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, he suggested I come to this, so.
Well, I hope it's helped. Do you have any questions for faculty while we only have them for a few more minutes? We've got a lot of expertise in the room, consultancies, HR, higher ed.
I don't really have any questions, but it was very interesting.
Good, perfect. Sasha, I know you're a graduate student as well. I think you've just moved on to a different university. It's probably been new for you. You're in your 20s, young. Do you have any questions for our faculty tonight?
No, not really, but I would love to ask if it's like accredited internationally? I know, like, do you guys have any international students currently in the program? And if they were to go back to like their hometown, would this degree like be accepted there as well? Like, especially like in teaching, for example. Obviously, the certifications probably wouldn't match because it's by state, but yeah.
Great question.
I can jump in first if you'd like. You hit the nail on the head. It's the state certifications that become the wrinkle. Now, a lot of states will have what you call reciprocity, where you can take your teaching license and sort of transfer it over to another state. They'll have some kind of process or mechanism in place where you can do that. To be quite honest with you, it's been a barrier for people in the past transferring from one state to the next, like into Kentucky, for example. It's a topic of conversation at the state level because I don't know if you guys heard or not, but we're dealing with a pretty big teacher shortage, not just in Kentucky, but regionally and nationally. So it's a big issue. So there's a lot of discussion at the local level, regional and state level about how can we, remove some barriers for folks that want to be teachers and existing teachers who are coming to our state from elsewhere. So very appropriate question that you're asking. Internationally is even a little bit more tricky because folks, you're coming in, you got to find, if you're coming in from another country, coming into UofL, for example, the transcript evaluation, if you completed your degree in a language other than English, there's a couple little, well, let's just be honest, some barriers that those students have to overcome to do it. So it's multifaceted. It's possible, though. We have a lot of international students that have come through our program, and it's become, I think, easier or less challenging, but probably not enough, in my opinion. So, but good question.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Michael Shuck.
I love that somebody said Michael Shuck, which is actually my name. Yes.
Dr. Sheffield, I don't know what our international student body looks like. I should. I know we have students that live outside of the country.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of military, Sasha, that are in the HROD program, but they're military and they're deployed overseas. But Dr. Sheffield, do you know our student body better than I?
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, I don't know of any international students that are currently in the program that are in another location. As Susan, as you just mentioned, we do have a whole lot of military men and women who will go overseas and they're currently working, who are taking classes for us. And Sasha, I'll kind of, if it's all right with you, kind of go into your question a little bit. One of the things around HR and OD in the HROD program is that we have the disciplines happen to cross, as Dr. Shuck mentioned, they cross people and they cross understanding of people. And those two fields are in high demand across the entire globe. The more we understand about one another, the better we can, have good businesses and be good people for one another. So we have yet to hear anybody come back and say, I mean, there may be somebody, but I've never heard anybody come back and say, I can't use this, or it wasn't respected where I went. I've just not heard it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but for us, we within the HR and OD space, we look for performance and human understanding, and those two things, they happen to be synonymous with global communication. So really strong connection everywhere.
Dr. Sheffield, would you want to elaborate as well as to Lead 624? So Sasha has a better understanding.
Yeah, it's a great question. So Lead 624 is an international, it's a course that we take where we take students overseas. We had an incredible, prior to COVID, Dr. Shuck and a lot of the faculty led a lot of international travel, and we just started that back up. As a matter of fact, June, I think it's the first week of June, we've got a faculty member taking a group of students to Dublin, Ireland, to experience HR in that space. And so we do that on a yearly basis in a different part of the world. We try, we're trying not to repeat a place, just to go to a new place, but just wherever an opportunity exists that we can fold in HR and OD learning and understanding.
And Dr. Sheffield, those students, if I'm correct, they're going to be attending an HR specific conference.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I should have said that. It is an HR conference, right? HR or OD conference. This particular one is HR and OD, so it fits both categories.
Dr. Groves, I'm not sure of our student body. I don't know that we've got a lot international in our Masters of Higher Ed Administration, but you would know better than I.
Yeah, we always get a few every year. Of course, obviously it's trickier, but the enrollment process is exactly the same. And and generally, so yes, if the university is accredited, the United States has one of the most rigorous accreditation processes in the world, and not every country has accreditation as part of its standards for colleges and universities. But a degree from the United States is generally very well respected and highly sought after. So particularly in our field, you would be in good shape with a degree from a U.S. institution going back to work in another country.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you. That sounds amazing.
All right, looks like Dr. Sheffield's typing in the chat. Any other questions? I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Do you need like a background in like psychology or anything to get into the programs, or are all majors and from bachelors able to?
I'll be quick on my response, because the answer is some backgrounds are more helpful than others to become a teacher, because it's less hoops you'll have to jump through to get your state certification when the time comes. But that is quite literally a whole other information session. I would encourage you, if you're interested, anybody's interested in becoming a teacher, we have routine information sessions explaining that very thing. I think our next one's June 13th. So I would encourage, if anybody's interested, we have those ongoing and available. So yeah, ultimately, if you want to be a teacher, the state requires you to know a thing or two about the content area that you want to teach, and that's where your major and/or prerequisites would come in. That's the short answer.
Dr. Shuck, I know you put in all majors are welcome, right? And same for you, Dr. Gross, correct? We welcome all majors. Perfect. All right. Well, hopefully we have answered questions tonight, and this has been informative. That's our goal. We're going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's session. We appreciate your time, your energy, your talent. We are here and available should you have additional questions going forward. I am a recruitment strategist. I work in the College of Education and Human Development, and I am always willing to help and/or provide any guidance you may need. So please reach out to me. You have my email address. If you'd like to talk with any of our faculty on the call today, please let me know, and I will immediately connect you to them. And they are always more than happy to take time to talk with you. You didn't hear Dr. Sheffield, but normally he speaks a little bit about his Native American heritage background. So I'm sure, Dr. Sheffield, before we sign off, I don't know if you want to give your background or not. Just curious.
You have successfully pulled me into every conversation tonight, Susan. Thank you for that.
I try.
I'm a tribal member of the Quetzal tribe in Fort Yuma, Arizona. And as a tribal member, one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is who we affiliate with, and that's important. And one of the things I'll just mention to you that, as we've kind of talked through Dr. Shuck and I talked to many people about this program because we love the program. An interesting thing I found over time is that when you finish your undergraduate degree, the question that most people will get will be, what did you take? That's usually the first question you get is, what did you take? When you finish your graduate degree, the first question most people get is, where did you go? So it's really interesting that the deviation between an undergraduate and a graduate program. So I say that to say, as a tribal member, I'm incredibly particular about affiliation and who I'm connected to. So I'm proud to say that I'm connected to this school and to the people that you see on the screen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheffield. We're going to wrap it up then. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We're recording this, and everyone that's on the session tonight will get an email from me, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening.